Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for finding my channel, Kindred Souls of Brooklyn. I really appreciate it. And today, folks, I want to do an interesting video on tokens and how I missed them and the reason why I missed them. But I'm also going to include famous token scams that were one of the reasons why tokens were eliminated in the first place. I mean, yeah, Metro cards were great and they were more convenient and you could add rides to them. But the reality was that the New York City subway system, Transit Authority, was losing a ton of money on token scams. So join me now as we look back at the token and we include some of these famous scams and some funny stories about the whole token experience in New York City. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Right off the bat, folks, tokens were started in the New York City subway system since its inception. Basically, the subway started back in 1904, and the fare then was really cheap. It was 5 cents. In fact, if anybody remembers Coney Island was called the Nickel Empire because the reason was because in Coney Island everything was a nickel, including the subway fare. And believe it or not, the subway fare didn't go up until 1948, till after World War II, till it went to 10 cents. So tokens were used predominantly, obviously exclusively, on the New York City subway up until 2003 when they introduced the Metro card. Folks, one of the craziest scams ever was a scam called token sucking. And I'm going to let a lady named Ann Milgram explain it to you. She was Attorney General of New Jersey, and she's also done a lot of work on CNN. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you clips of the F train riding as I play this interview. And she could explain it much better than I can. It's just absolutely hysterical. You won't believe people actually do this kind of stuff.
You know, the fare at the time, I mean, this is many years ago, was like $1.50. And the crime itself, it was before we had Metro cards in New York City. So we had tokens, which were the little metal, they look like quarters. And what would happen is that people would go into the subway system, they would put a token in, and when you walk through the turnstile, it didn't always turn completely through, which meant that the token didn't drop to the bottom receptacle. And so that meant that a person who was watching this could come up behind someone, you know, enterprising, I would argue in many ways, would come up behind you. And there were two ways to commit the crime. One was you take a straw and you'd put it into the receptacle and you'd suck up the token. The other way was just people would put their mouth on the receptacle and just suck up the token.
Suck up the token.
Suck it up. They would often get caught by the police or they would try to sell it to somebody. And these were the first cases I did. And, you know, I mean, I would stand in arraignment court and look at this and someone would have been arrested one time for token sucking. And I would think that it's so gross.
Is that the statute?
Token sucking. It's called
token sucking.
It's called theft of services.
Okay.
And by the way, this is now changed in Manhattan. The Manhattan District Attorney has recently said he won't do this.
Was your view?
My view
about that crime was what?
Was that if someone was willing to go through that I really didn't want to prosecute those cases. That I felt that someone deserved to take the token and go. It was, I mean, there were two ways to do it, one of which was more gross than the other, but I sort of felt like, and remember that people get a misdemeanor.
But it's a crime, though.
It's a crime, but people get a misdemeanor criminal conviction that goes with them for the rest of their life.
Hey folks, so what you're looking at right now is the Connecticut Turnpike. And the reason why I'm including this was because in the early 1980s, someone discovered, or other people discovered, that if you used a token from this turnpike, it would actually work in the New York City turnstiles in the transit system. But here was the catch. The tokens that were sold on the Connecticut Turnpike were actually 1/3 of the price as the tokens on the transit system. So guess what, folks? Every single day, the Transit Authority had thousands upon thousands upon thousands of these tokens stuck in their system. And it was actually gotten so bad that I think the transit actually brought Connecticut to court over it. And I think there was some kind of resolution that for as many fares as they were beat out of, I think Connecticut had to give like 17 cents or something, because when they let them know what was happening, Connecticut was very slow to switch the token size and all that. So, but still, a very, very famous scam. And I remember people talking about this. I had never seen one, but I heard plenty of people speaking about it. And there was another reason why tokens disappeared from the view, because this was a very, very common problem. Folks, some funny stories about tokens that I knew personally from people I knew who worked for the Transit Authority. One of them came from a guy named Ralph, who I used to bowl with. And Ralph was a token clerk on Church Avenue, which was also on the F line. And he told a story about how tokens were annoying, how he loved when tokens went away because it was such a pain in the neck to count them every day, and they had to have the armored car come and give them new tokens, and sometimes they would run out, whatever. So this story happened, he said, it was like the late 80s when what happened was Every day, apparently, a guy would show up in a suit and tie. I guess maybe he was a Wall Street guy, I don't know. And he would get on the train at Church Avenue, the F train line, and he would come in a suit and tie. And every single day, he would buy one token for some reason. And he would give Ralph a $100 bill. So, of course, these boots don't really have a lot of change. And usually it's a lot of fives and singles. And this guy used to come on right at the beginning of shift when Ralph was coming on. So after like 4 or 5 days of Ralph having to call the supervisor to come down and give him change, he said to the guy, he goes, why do you give me a $100 bill every day and just buy one token? He said, can't you just buy more tokens, or can't you just give me a smaller form of payment? So the guy was really nasty, and he said to him, he goes, a $100 bill, that's legal tender. You have to cash that for me. So Ralph was really frustrated. He didn't really know what to do. So the supervisor came by later in the day, and Ralph told him the story. So in true New York or Brooklyn fashion, the supervisor had a great answer for Ralph. He said, listen, he goes, don't worry. He says, we're going to take care of this. He goes, tomorrow I'm going to come. You're going to see what we're going to do. So sure enough, the next day comes, and Ralph sees the supervisor coming in, just before his shift started and before this guy showed up. And the guy had one of those coin bags, those heavy bank coin bags. And Ralph's like, what's the idea with that? He goes, take a look. The guy actually bought $100 in silver dollars. And silver dollars are pretty darn big. But they actually have a silver dollar right here. So you picture, look at the size of this thing. And it's quite heavy. So what they did was, when the guy showed up as usual and he gave him his $100 bill, they turned around, and what they did is they gave the guy back 98 silver dollars, 98 of these. And the guy was like, he goes, what's going on with this? He goes, I'm wearing a suit and tie. I can't take all of that. So Ralph says, hey, I'm sorry, it's legal tender. You got to take it. Sure enough, the next day, guess what? The guy came with a $5 bill, and he bought a couple of tokens, and problem ended. I don't know, I guess like a lot of things, there was a certain romantic flair, I guess, to having tokens, or it was kind of one of those strange things, because I remember going with my friends to the city or whatever. We'd go someplace, and sometimes you'd go maybe to an arcade or whatever, movie theater, and like people would spend all their money, but they would always have like maybe a token or two. And I also remember a lot of times people would always put a token, like they have like, I don't know, in their briefcase or in their school bag, like an emergency token just in case something happened or whatever. And I guess, you could probably do that with a Metro card as well, but there was just something about that token that people would just kind of pull out, or, hey, can you loan me a token, whatever. I guess it was something of a little bit of a romantic flair. And I often think, too, about the famous Glenn Campbell song called Rhinestone Cowboy. It's a really old song. Glenn Campbell passed away last year, but it's probably Glenn Campbell's signature song. He actually sang with the Beach Boys. He filled in for Brian Wilson one year. But people would know him from the song Rhinestone Cowboy and maybe Lineman of the County. But I remember one of the famous lines in Rhinestone Cowboy was, it's a song about someone who pretty much gives up their values because they want to be famous, and no matter what happened, didn't matter. As long as they were in the limelight, that's all that really mattered. That's kind of the meaning of the song. And the famous line goes, I'll dream of the things I'll do with a subway token and $1 tucked inside my shoe. And also, folks, don't forget the famous Brooklyn saying, which is, when something happens to you, like say for instance, you get like a certificate at work. And, it's kind of doesn't really mean anything. It's like kind of a token thing, the token person, let's just say. But what was the old famous saying that people had in Brooklyn, probably all over? Well, I know we had this one in Brooklyn was, oh yeah, that certificate, that and a token will get you on the F train, take it to Manhattan. I mean, it's just certain things like that are nostalgia, and these are the things that I reminisce with, and reasons why I miss the token. And, also, folks, from a safety standpoint, I guess, it was sad when they got rid of tokens, they also got rid of a lot of jobs in the MTA. A lot of people were either had to retire or, and there was something cool about, there are still token clerks on the subway system, but back in the day, there was a lot more people working that job, and a lot of people felt really safe having the token clerk in there. People would just, if it was at night, they would stand by the token booth and wait for the subway to come, so they didn't have to stand down in the subway and worry about getting mugged. It was a great thing to do, to ask for directions for the token clerks. It was always great having a person there to deal with. And I guess that's my generation too. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, I love computers, I love apps, but there was just something special about dealing with that person who was at the token booth. A funny story, because it worked out really well. I know another token clerk, and his name was Mike, and Mike used to work on the Fort Hamilton F train stop, and the guy's name is Smokey. That was his nickname is Smokey. And I always wondered why he got the nickname Smokey. And one day I talked to somebody, we were having a party or something. And in fact, Smokey, he's still around. He used to always like getting up and doing the karaoke and doing Born to Be Wild. And he was doing the song Born to Be Wild. And he said, oh, yeah, great job, Smokey, whatever. So I said to my friend, I was like, why do they call this guy Smokey? And he goes, well, you know, he's a token clerk. And one day when he was on Fort Hamilton, somebody threw a smoke bomb inside the booth. They slipped it underneath the token thing while he wasn't looking. And it was like a big smoke bomb, and the whole thing filled with smoke, and he got all nervous, and he ran out, and, you know, so as a result of that story, they always called him Smokey. So just another crazy, funny Brooklyn story for you. Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed that little talk on subway tokens and a little reminiscent down memory lane. And I just want to say, folks, like I always do, I appreciate you guys watching. If you can please subscribe, share, and like the videos, it would mean a heck of a lot to my wife and I. We are starting a foundation for my son. It's a legitimate 501c3. And it's, you know, we lost my son last year. My son loved riding the subway, but we lost him here in Florida. And he was a musician, so the foundation, we're going to be giving out musical instruments to kids who can't afford to play. You could look us up. We're called the Waffles Foundation. And we just started up the foundation, and we hope to do some great things. And like I say, folks, all the proceeds from this channel go towards suicide prevention. It's a big problem in our country, folks. Every 40 seconds, someone takes their life. So we want to try and do the best we can to try to help eliminate this. We can't bring Matt back, but we can certainly try to help other people who are out there. I think that's what Matt would have wanted. Matt was a really great person. He was a lead guitarist, and he brought a lot of joy to people with his music. You could see some of his music on my channel. But thank you again for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Al signing off from Central Florida, where there's no tokens. Holy cow. Take care now. Bye-bye.